You think you know what betrayal feels like. A broken promise, a discovered lie, a shattered heart. Let me tell you, you don't. True betrayal is a silent, surgical thing. It doesn't scream. It empties you. It's looking at a zero balance on your bank statement and recognizing the hand that typed the commands. My son Alexei didn't just steal my money. He sold my future for a chance to join a ghost, an organization so shadowy they don't have a name, just a sound. The chorus. And they don't just want your wealth. They want your soul. I was dying, you see. I thought I had nothing left to lose. I was wrong. I had one final, powerful thing to lose, my son. And I decided if I was going to lose him, it would be on my terms. Chapter 1. The Diagnosis and the Zero. The doctor's words didn't really land at first. They floated in the sterile air of the office, like dust motes in a sunbeam. I remember the feel of the paper gown, crinkling under my clenched fists. I remember the coolness of the air on my skin. But the words, they were just sounds. My mind was a strange, quiet place, a blank, white room. I walked home. I needed the city's noise, its grime, its life. It felt more real than that sanitized office. My apartment welcomed me with its familiar silence. The worn armchair my father had loved, the bookshelves sagging with the weight of history. My little fortress. I made a cup of tea, the ritual steadying my hands. That's when I saw the notification glowing on my phone. A bank alert. I never got those. My thumb trembled as I tapped the screen. And there it was, the number that had defined a lifetime of sacrifice, of working 2 jobs, of going without so he could have everything. The number that was supposed to see me through this ending with dignity. It was 0. Not shock, not yet. It was a profound, chilling disbelief. I read it again, and a 4th time. The 0 didn't change. It just sat there, a black hole on the bright screen, sucking all the light and warmth from the room. My breath hitched. This wasn't a mistake. My soul knew it before my mind could catch up. This was a severing. I called the bank. A robot, then a human with a voice devoid of inflection. The transfers were initiated online, Mrs. Petrova. 3 large transactions, all to an account listed under Elysian Holdings. Elysian Holdings. The name meant nothing to me. It sounded cold, corporate. And who authorized this? I asked, my voice a stranger's. A pause, the clatter of a keyboard. The primary user on the joint account, ma'am. Alexei Petrova. There it was, the knife, twisted by name. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I hung up. The silence in my apartment was no longer comfortable. It was accusatory. The ticking of the grandfather clock in the hall became a countdown. My life, my security, my son. All gone in one afternoon. And then a shift, a deep, tectonic settling in my spirit. The grief and fear didn't vanish, they crystallized, they hardened into something sharp and cold and terribly, terribly clear. I walked to my bedroom, to the old wooden chest at the foot of my bed. Inside, beneath a stack of my son's childhood drawings, was my husband's journal. Mikhail was an academic, a man obsessed with patterns in history, in finance. He called them the echoes of greed. He died before he could finish his work, whispering about a network he called the chorus. I thought it was the obsession of a sick mind. Now, I wasn't so sure. I opened the journal, the cryptic notes, the diagrams of shell companies, and there, circled faintly in red ink, was a name: Elysian Holdings. My son didn't just steal from me, he delivered my life's work to a ghost from his father's nightmares. The first conflict was over. My money was gone. My son was a thief. But the second, far more dangerous one, had just begun. The fight for his soul, and I had nothing left to lose but him. Chapter 2. The Ghost in the Machine. I couldn't sleep, of course. The 0 on my screen was a brand on the back of my eyelids, glowing in the dark. But the fear, the raw, animal panic, had passed. In its place was a cold, clean clarity. I was an archivist, a keeper of stories, and my own story had just been violently edited. My job now was to find the original text. The first thing I did was call Ivan, not on the phone. That felt too exposed, too thin. I used an old encrypted messaging app Mikhail had insisted we install a lifetime ago, a digital relic from a past I never thought I'd need. The message was simple. The ledger is empty. The echo is real. I need your eyes. He responded in under a minute. The shop is always open for you, Lena. I arrived at his dusty, wonderful bookshop just as the sun was bleeding over the city skyline. The smell of old paper and binding glue was a balm. Ivan was waiting, a large man folded into a small chair behind a desk piled high with books. He didn't offer pity. He just pushed a steaming cup of tea toward me and said, "Show me." He was the only person who wouldn't try to hold my hand. He would help me sharpen the knife instead. I showed him the bank statement. I showed him Mikhail's journal, my finger tracing the words, the chorus, and the circled Elysian Holdings. He listened, his eyes sharp and impossibly blue in his wrinkled face, never leaving mine. A joint account, he mused, his voice a low rumble. He had the keys, but this Elysian, this is not a simple theft, Lena. This is a transaction. What did he buy, Ivan? My voice was steady, but my hands, resting on my lap, were clenched so tight my knuckles were white. Ivan's fingers flew across a separate, sleek laptop, a stark contrast to the ancient, paper-filled world around him. Let's see what we can see. For hours we dove into the digital deep, Ivan navigating the currents, me pointing the way with the clues from Mikhail's journal. Elysian Holdings was a ghost, a Russian nesting doll of shell companies registered in offshore havens. But Ivan was a ghost hunter. He followed the money, not to a luxury goods store, but to a series of complex, layered investments. It was being cleaned, moved, put to work. He didn't spend it, Lena. Ivan said finally, leaning back and rubbing his eyes. He invested it. Or rather, they did. This is sophisticated. This is professional. The ice in my veins thickened. This was so much worse than a spree of selfishness. This was cold, calculated conversion. My life's work had been fed into a machine. And then Ivan found it, a pattern. Small, consistent withdrawals from Elysian's main pool funneled into a separate, private account, an account under the name Lena Petrova, my daughter-in-law. A salary, I whispered, the pieces clicking into a horrifying mosaic. He's not the mastermind. He's an employee. He gave them everything and they pay him a stipend. The betrayal was no longer a single brutal blow. It was a web, and my son was trapped in the very center of it. He hadn't just stolen from me, he had indentured himself, and Anya was living on the proceeds. It was at that moment my phone vibrated, an unknown number, a familiar, dreaded lurch in my stomach. I showed it to Ivan. He gave a sharp nod, his expression grim. He activated a recorder on his laptop. I answered, "Hello?" "Mom." It was Alexei. His voice was wrong. Too high, too tight. It wasn't the voice of a triumphant thief. It was the voice of a cornered animal. "Alexei, are you calling from Dubai? The pictures online are lovely." I kept my tone flat, a neutral canvas, a sharp, pained intake of breath. "Mom, listen to me. You need to stop." I felt a thrill, cold and electric, shoot through me. He knew I was looking. "Stop what, Alexei? I'm a dying woman. My activities are somewhat limited these days." "Don't," he hissed, the word bursting from him. "Don't be clever. Don't look into things you don't understand. You have to drop it. Forget about the money. Just let it go." "Why? Is it not being spent well? Is Anya's new handbag not to her liking?" The silence on the other end was deafening. I could hear his ragged breathing. When he spoke again, it was a desperate, broken whisper. They're not people you play games with, Mom. If they think you're a liability, they'll just... Stop. For your own good, please." And then the line went dead. I looked at Ivan. The recording had stopped. The room was silent, the dust motes frozen in the air. "He's not warning you off, Lena," he said, his voice barely audible. "He's begging for his life." The second conflict was no longer about money. It wasn't even about betrayal anymore. It was about survival, his and mine. The chorus had felt my touch, my gentle archival probing in the dark, and they had sent my terrified son to deliver their first chilling message. They thought a dying woman would be easy to silence. They had no idea they were poking a lioness whose last cub was in danger. The hunt was no longer a quiet investigation. It was a war, and I had just been sent my declaration. Chapter 3. The Offer.
The silence after Alexei's call was the loudest sound I'd ever heard. It wasn't empty. It was dense, pregnant with everything he hadn't said. The fear in his voice was a stain on the air in Ivan's shop. They'll just stop. He wasn't talking about a lawsuit. I felt it then, a shift deep inside, a mother's protective fury, a cold and focused rage that burned away the last of my grief. They had my son. They thought they could threaten me through him. It was their first and last mistake. Ivan was the one who broke the silence. They know you're digging. This is a pressure test. They want to see if you'll frighten easily. He looked at me, his gaze unwavering. You are not an easy woman to frighten, Lena. No, I agreed, my voice surprisingly steady. But I am a pragmatic one. They've shown their hand. They use fear. Now, I looked down at Mikhail's journal, my fingers tracing the rough paper. Now we make them an offer they can't refuse. We bait the hook with exactly what they want. Ivan leaned forward, a grim understanding in his eyes. And what is that? Me, I said simply. A dying woman with nothing to lose who just proved she's a nuisance. They'll want to control the narrative, to neutralize me. So let's give them a clear target, a manageable one. The plan was audacious, a tightrope walk over a canyon. I spent the next 2 days in a feverish, focused haze. I didn't try to hide my digital footprints anymore. I amplified them. I used my archival knowledge to construct a persona, a bitter, sick old woman enraged by her son's betrayal, digging for anything she could use as leverage. I left deliberate, clever but not too clever breadcrumbs in obscure financial forums, posing as a researcher looking into historical corporate structures like Elysian Holdings. I was painting a picture of a lonely, intelligent, but ultimately pathetic and predictable threat. I was building my own cage and praying the lion would walk inside. It worked faster than I expected. 3 days after Alexei's call, a different kind of email arrived. It wasn't sent to my personal account, but to a dummy address I'd used in one of my forum posts. The address was a jumble of letters, but the name was chillingly simple. Silas. The email was short, brutally polite. Mrs. Petrova, we are aware of your recent inquiries. Your dedication is noted. It would be a shame for your remaining time to be consumed by fruitless endeavors. Perhaps a conversation would be more productive. You have something we need. We have something you want. A trade. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird in a bony cage. This was it. The ghost had taken form and given itself a name. I showed Ivan. His face was grim. This is the point of no return, Lena. You walk into this, there's no walking back. I passed the point of no return the moment I saw that 0. I replied, my fingers already typing a response. I kept it proud, slightly arrogant, laced with the desperation I knew they would expect. Mr. Silas, I am listening. Name the time and place. The response was instantaneous. There is no place. We will call this number in 10 minutes. The 10 minutes that followed were an eternity. I sat in my armchair, the one that had seen so much of my life, and waited for the lion to call. Ivan was on the extension in my bedroom, silent, listening, a digital witness. The phone rang, a shrill sound that sliced through the quiet. I took a deep, settling breath and answered. Mrs. Petrova. The voice was not what I expected. It was calm, cultured. It sounded like a university professor or a gentle doctor. There was no menace in its tone, which was, in itself, the most menacing thing of all. We understand you've been looking into Elysian Holdings, a fascinating, if ultimately futile pursuit. My pursuits are my own, I said, injecting a thin veneer of defiance into my voice. You have my son. We have an arrangement with your son, Silas corrected gently. A mutually beneficial one. He provided capital, we provide opportunity. The issue, it seems, is you. The issue is my money. Is it? He paused, and I could almost hear his smile. Or is the issue that you are a historian who's stumbled upon a living, breathing secret? You've seen your late husband's journals. You know of the chorus. The air left my lungs. They knew. They knew about Mikhail. They knew about the journal. How much else did they know? I felt exposed, naked. The carefully constructed persona I'd built felt like tissue paper. They could see right through me. I know the ramblings of a sick man. I managed, my throat tight. Mikhail was many things, but he was not a rambler, Silas said, with a hint of genuine respect in his voice. He was brilliant, and he was close. Too close. It's a pity. He let that word hang in the air, heavy with unspoken threat. But you, Lena, may I call you Lena, you have a chance to do what he could not. You can provide a service, a final, meaningful act. What service? I asked, my mouth dry as dust. We have a problem. A digital ledger, a record of certain transactions, has been misplaced. It is a complex, encrypted file. The person who took it lacks the finesse to understand it. But you are an archivist. You understand patterns, authentication, the soul of a document. We believe you can find it. You have a reputation for finding things. So that was it. They didn't just see me as a threat to be silenced. They saw me as a tool to be used, a bloodhound they could sick on their own missing treasure. And in return, I asked, playing my part, you will release my son, give me back my money? Silas's chuckle was soft, patronizing. The money is gone, Lena, repurposed. But your son, we can amend his contract. We can grant him a full release, a clean slate. All you have to do is find our ledger, prove its authenticity, and bring it to us. It was a lie. I knew it was a lie the moment he said it. They would never let either of us go. But they had taken the bait. They had invited the fox into the henhouse. How do I know you'll keep your word? I asked, layering my voice with a desperate hope I did not feel. You don't, Silas said, simply, his tone flat and final. You only have my word, and the certain knowledge of what will happen to Alexei if you refuse. We will call you with instructions in 48 hours. Use your time wisely. The line went dead. I sat there, the phone pressed to my ear, listening to the dial tone. Ivan came out of the bedroom, his face ashen. "Lena, this is a trap. They'll have you find this ledger and then they'll—" "I know, Ivan," I said, lowering the phone. A strange, cold calm had settled over me. The fear was gone, replaced by a terrifying certainty. But when I find it, I looked at him, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a genuine smile touch my lips. It was not a pleasant smile. "I'm going to make a copy, and then I'm going to use it to burn their entire world to the ground."
Chapter 4. The Double Life. The 48 hours were a countdown etched on my soul. I moved through my apartment like a ghost, but my mind was a war room. Silas thought he was leveraging a dying woman's love for her son. He didn't understand he was unleashing an archivist on the most important document of her life. I felt a strange duality. The frail body that needed pills and rest, and the sharp, vengeful spirit that burned within it. I was living two lives, and both were running out of time. Ivan and I devised our strategy. We would play the perfect pawns. When Silas called back, his instructions were chillingly precise. I was to use my professional network and archival intuition to track the digital trail of a disgruntled former chorus associate. They provided me with a locked, monitored laptop, a gilded cage for my search. Every keystroke, every query would be watched. So, I gave them a show. I spent my days hunched over that machine, performing a meticulous pantomime of the hunt. I followed false leads they'd planted, hit dead ends with convincing frustration, and occasionally I'd have a breakthrough, a small piece of the puzzle I'd allow myself to solve, just enough to keep them hopeful and confident in their control over me. Meanwhile, the real work happened in the shadows. Using an entirely different system Ivan had cobbled together from parts so old they were practically invisible to modern tracking, we did the actual hunting. While my monitored screen displayed searches for financial records, my secret screen was running complex decryption algorithms Ivan designed based on patterns from Mikhail's journals. We weren't just looking for the ledger. We were reverse engineering the lock before we even found the box. The stress was a physical weight. I had to maintain the illusion of a desperate, cooperative mother while secretly plotting the destruction of my captors. The fear was a constant companion, a cold knot in my stomach that tightened every time the monitored laptop pinged with a new, condescending message from Silas. "Progress, Mrs. Petrova? The clock is ticking, Lena." And then the twist that nearly broke me. I was deep into the second night, the glow of the two screens painting my face in shades of blue. A notification popped up on my social media, a platform I never used but kept for distant family. It was a video post, tagged publicly. My heart stopped. It was Alexei. He was sitting at a sleek, modern desk, the Dubai skyline glintering behind him, but he looked wrong. His face was a mask of calm, but his eyes were hollow, dead. "Hello, everyone," he began, his voice flat. "I feel I need to address some unfortunate rumors. My mother, Lena Petrova, is very ill. Her condition has affected her mind." He looked directly into the camera, and a chill colder than death swept through me.
She has become paranoid, vengeful. She's making wild, baseless accusations about my wife and I, about some fictional criminal organization. She believes I stole from her, when the truth is I have been managing her finances to protect her from her own deteriorating judgment. The words were bullets, each one finding its mark. I felt the air leave my body. This was their move. This was how they isolated their prey. He continued, his voice dripping with a practiced tragic disappointment. It breaks my heart to do this, but for the safety of my family and to protect my mother from further embarrassment, I have to distance myself. I won't be responding to her calls or messages. I hope she gets the help she needs. I pray she finds peace. The video ended. I sat there, utterly still. The silence in the room was absolute. They hadn't just threatened him, they had weaponized him. They had made him my public executioner, painting me as a senile, vindictive old woman to discredit anything I might ever say. A hot tear traced a path down my cheek, followed by another. It wasn't just hurt. It was a profound, soul-crushing fury. They had taken my son's voice and used it to call me crazy to the entire world. The monitored laptop pinged. A message from Silas. A necessary measure, Lena, to ensure the narrative remains clean. I trust you understand. Now, back to work. The ledger awaits. He was watching. He knew I'd seen it. This was a test of my resolve. I wiped the tears away with a sharp, angry motion. The grief turned to fuel. The betrayal hardened into adamant iron. They wanted a broken, compliant tool. They would get one. I typed my response to Silas, my fingers striking the keys with cold precision. I understand. A mother's heart is a distraction I can no longer afford. I am close. The pattern is emerging. It was the truth. Because at that exact moment, on the secret screen, Ivan's algorithm had just finished its run. A complex string of code resolved into a single blinking IP address. "We have it," Ivan's voice came through my earpiece, hushed with awe and terror. "The ledger, it's not on some server in the Caymans. Lena, it's being stored on a private encrypted node in Alexei's apartment in Dubai." The final horrifying piece of the puzzle snapped into place. The ledger, the heart of the chorus, was hidden in the one place they were sure no one would ever look, with the family of their most disposable asset. My son wasn't just a prisoner. He was the unwitting guard of his own jailer's most dangerous secret. The game had just changed entirely. I wasn't just saving Alexei anymore. I was going to force him to hand me the key to his own prison, and I was going to do it while he was calling me insane to the entire world.
Chapter 5. The Reckoning. The world thought I was a senile old woman. My own son had declared me a paranoid liability to be managed and discarded. And the most dangerous secret of a shadow empire was sitting in his apartment. The irony was so perfect, it was almost divine. I felt no triumph, only a cold, surgical focus. The heartbreak had been cauterized. All that remained was the work. Silas was pleased with my progress, On the monitored laptop, I fed him just enough verified data to make his mouth water. Incomplete transaction IDs, partial account numbers. I was a fisherman, and I was reeling in a very large, very hungry shark. I told him I had triangulated the ledger's location to a server in Dubai, but that the final layer of encryption was tied to a physical biometric key. A lie, of course, but a necessary one. The final step requires me to be on site, I typed, my heart hammering against my ribs. The encryption is linked to a family member's biometric signature. I need to see my son. The silence from his end was long enough to make me fear I had overplayed my hand. Then the response came. A curious security measure. We will arrange it. He will be told you are coming to make amends. Do not disappoint us, Lena. The cost of failure is now beyond your comprehension. 2 days later, I was on a plane, my body trembling with the fatigue that had nothing to do with the cancer. Ivan was my silent partner, a voice in my ear, a digital guardian angel. The moment you have the ledger, the dead man's switch goes active. The copies go to Interpol, the Financial Crimes Unit, and 3 major news outlets. There's no going back. I passed going back a long time ago, Ivan, I whispered, looking down at the clouds. The meeting was set in a sterile luxury hotel suite, not Alexei's home. Of course not. They wouldn't risk me being in the one place I actually needed to be. When I entered, Alexei was standing by the window, his back to me. Anya was perched on a sofa, her face a mask of cold contempt. And sitting calmly in an armchair was Silas. He was exactly as his voice had suggested, a man in a perfectly tailored suit with kind eyes that held the warmth of a shark. "Lena," Silas said, gesturing to the seat opposite him, "so good of you to come. Alexei has been eager to see you." Alexei turned. The hollow look from the video was gone, replaced with raw, terrified anger. "What are you doing here, Mom? Haven't you done enough?" His words were meant to wound, but all I heard was the fear behind them. He was trying to push me away, to save me. It was too late for that. "I came to understand," I said, my voice the picture of weary defeat. I played my part, the confused, sick mother. I need to see your home, Alexei, to say goodbye properly, to see the life you've built. I let my voice crack. A mother's last request. Anya snorted. Silas watched me, his head tilted, analyzing. He was looking for the archivist, the threat. All he saw was a dying woman. "Unusual request," Silas mused, "but I see no harm in it. Alexei, take your mother to your apartment. Give her the tour. We will wait here." His smile was a razor blade. "Take your time." It was a test. He was giving me enough rope to hang myself. He had men watching the building. He was sure I was harmless. The car ride was silent. The apartment was exactly as I'd imagined, cold, opulent, and utterly soulless. The moment the door closed, Alexei grabbed my arm, his fingers digging in. "What are you doing?" he hissed, his face inches from mine. "You have to leave, now. You don't know what they can do." I know exactly what they're capable of, I said, pulling my arm free. My voice lost its frail tremor, becoming the voice she remembered from childhood, the one that brooked no argument. I know the ledger is here. He froze, his face draining of all color. What? How could you? Mikhail's journals, Ivan's skills, a mother's intuition. Where is it? He stared at me, truly seeing me for the first time, not the sick old woman, but the force of nature he'd betrayed. He crumpled, his shoulders slumping. It's on a secure server in my office. The biometric lock. It's my fingerprint. They made me the custodian. It was my honor. He let out a broken sob. They said if anything happened to it, they'd kill Anya, then you. Then it's a good thing I'm here to make sure nothing happens to it, I said, walking toward the home office. Open it. With trembling hands, he pressed his thumb to a scanner. A panel slid open, revealing a sleek, unmarked server. Ivan's voice was crisp in my ear. I'm in. Downloading now. 60 seconds. We stood there, mother and son, in the heart of the lie he had built. The seconds ticked by like heartbeats. Mom, I'm so sorry, he whispered, the words finally truly meant. I know, I said, not looking at him, but sorry doesn't balance the books. The download complete, I turned to leave. The game was up. Silas would know the moment we walked out that door. We had to move. But we were too late. As we stepped out of the apartment, two large men blocked the hallway. Silas stood behind them, his kind facade gone, replaced by a look of cold, murderous fury. A remarkable performance, Lena, but all plays must end. Give me the drive. I looked at him, and for the first time I smiled. It was a smile of pure, unadulterated victory. It's too late, Silas. The ledger is already gone, sent to a secure server, and it's attached to a dead man switch. If I don't enter a code every 12 hours, it gets released to every major law enforcement agency and media outlet on the planet. He went slack with shock, then tightened with rage. You bluff. Am I? I took a step forward, my body frail but my will indomitable. Here is my offer, and it is the only one you will get. You will release my son from all his obligations. You will wipe his debt clean. You will leave us both alone, and in return I will keep your secret until the day I die, which, as you know, is not far off. I looked him dead in the eye. You wanted to use a dying woman, Silas. Be careful what you wish for. We make excellent vessels for secrets and for vengeance. The standoff in that hallway felt like a lifetime. He was calculating, weighing the cost of killing us against the certainty of his empire's exposure. Finally, he gave a sharp, jerky nod to his men. They stepped aside. Take your son, he spat. But know this, Lena Petrova. We will be watching. One misstep. You've already seen my only step, I said, taking Alexei's arm. Goodbye, Silas. We walked away, down the hall, out of the gilded cage. We had won. But as we stepped into the sunlight, I knew the victory was fragile, temporary. The chorus was wounded, not dead, and my time was running out. The final chapter wasn't about escape. It was about what I would leave behind.